So we have half an hour or something like that. How is your energy? Do you need to go to the toilet? Oh, I don't know. Are we? It's always so. I'm always so amazed to see when I see the films one after the other. It's very intense for me. It's very moving to see all these people, all these languages, all these feelings, connections, all these stories throughout the years. I mean, hundreds of people. Amazing. Um, I don't know. It's overwhelming to see so many people together. Um, and the sound is kind of exhausting. It's a lot of, each work is very intense, for me anyway. Yes, Guillaume. Shall we pass the microphone to Guillaume?
We have another one here.
I'll get yours. Obrigado.
First of all, thank you. I'm always moved, particularly this one. It's always, every single time, it's insane. I have a more, I would say, more technical question, but it's not really technical. Perhaps you can help me out with this, which is all the projects that we saw, we always engaging to a specific community. And we all have witnessed different ages of these communities. And my question is, do you have any type of, would you like to comment the relation that you established between the different ages? Is this something that it's a process flowing and instinctively the project engages with the ages? Because this is not, you approach very deep complexities, rather young and older people. And is there any pattern or any way that you choose how to?
The
You understand?
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think
it's
I
not
understand.
really a
Yes.
very efficient question.
The earlier works that we saw happened in a more, and that's also in my career, the earlier works were a bit more anarchic in how they were happening, with a lot of chance encounters. Walking in a forest or in a village, and then coming across someone and having a conversation, and then being directed to someone else. So because I was not doing as many projects in the past, I didn't have the institutional support that I have now. In recent years, maybe it's been a bit too intense, sometimes doing 4 or 5 projects in 1 year. In the past was like 1 project every 2 years or 1 project a year, which is still intense because it was not organized. It was very anarchic. And I think when I look back, I took a lot of risks that now I wouldn't take, like engaging with teenagers or with children without having any institutional, any someone else observing and making sure that what is happening is safe for both of us. So anything could have happened that could have damaged their lives and could have completely destroyed me. So in the earlier projects, like Sounds from Beneath with the coal miners, I think I was trying to understand living in Britain as a foreigner and understanding the class system, which is very different from where I was born. I was born in Greece, but I'm also from a family of immigrants from. There was a Greek Armenian genocide in what is now Turkey. So my family moved to Greece well, some of my family that survived moved to Greece, others moved to other places in the 1920s. And so there's, as a kind of immigrant family, you're part of a very specific social structure. But there's no royal family, there's no aristocracy in the same way. So the way of understanding the class system in Greece and where I fitted in that was very different from going to the UK, where you have a whole aristocracy, and where, because of the Industrial Revolution and the power the working class had in the 60s and 70s was very different from what I witnessed in the 90s when I moved there. So I was trying to understand what happened. So a lot of my earlier works were very much engaging with older generation people. So what are the legacies of a kind of this kind of post-industrial legacies that my generation is inheriting? What are the legacies of the collapse of the workers' unions that we are inheriting? What are the legacies of this kind of deregulated financial system that we're inheriting?
So closer to your generation, you would say, or
yes,
young?
I'm inheriting. We are inheriting this, and I didn't show actually one of the projects we were going to show was an equivalent example to the coal miners from South Korea, showing a community of elderly women that are they're sea workers. But anyway, for different reasons, I thought it was not a good choice to show. So earlier works were dealing with that, more with these legacies we're inheriting, and really trying to connect with older generation people to kind of get their wisdom, their knowledge, a kind of witness. They are witnesses of very specific kind of history. But I think when I was in my mid-30s, something changed. And I started becoming very conscious of the legacies that I'm leaving behind and the people that are after me. So the work, even though the themes were there from the very beginning, so how did the older generation relate to the elements around them? Coal miners with the earth, or even Children of Unquiet, is really, the project started with their parents. And this was the turning point. Children of Unquiet, the project with the kids in Italy, it started with their parents. And I went to the villages where they used to live, and they lost their jobs because the power plant became completely automated. And it dawned on me to ask the question, what's happening to your children? And they told me there's no future for them here. They all have to leave. And then I made almost instantaneously a decision, and I said, then I think this project needs to engage with them who are not in the room. You are saying that there is no future for them, but what do they think? You are saying there is nothing for them here in this abandoned industrial and geothermal landscape. What do they think? So this was a turning point for me to really turn away from a kind of older generation of disillusioned working class throughout Europe and the world, but particularly Europe. This is the main territory that I've worked in Asia. And then really engage with the younger generation and trying to understand what not only legacies of post-industrialization and dystopia that they're inheriting, but also what their parents are telling them, that there is no future for them. And now that I see all the films together, I'm realizing that what I'm trying to excavate from these collaborations and uncover is basically their future. And basically tell them or try to discover with them that there are possibilities to think of a different kind of narrative of our future, our collective future, and especially their future. One that is based on solidarity, on why we're together, and another one that's based on poderíamos, on the fact that we could.
Thank you.
Obrigado, Gil.
I put the problems on the table.
Okay, you put the problems on the table, over the table. It's, you know, I think all those problems are from all of us, and it's really touching, and the question is, are we together, all the world, all the politicals, and all the people? You make me think about our, I don't know if we say postura, posture?
Posture,
No.
yeah.
Posture, yes.
Opposition, yeah.
Yes, and I don't know, I think people, not all the people, but people are more individualist today. I don't know. I think the younger generations, more than ever or always, you have to help each other, I think. Yes, it's really because sometimes we feel lonely and with a lot of noise, but inside you, I don't know what to say. I know many things, I think many things, but I don't know how to say it. It's a very touching work.
Well, thank you. I mean, you asked the question, are we together? I think, even though it might feel that my work, that I give answers, but I don't think I ever give answers. I think it's the people in the films that give answers.
Mm-hmm.
And the response to the question, are we together, is, I mean, really, is in that film. Well, actually, it was multiple films shown on monitors, LCD monitors. Those pairs of guardians and parents of people that cannot speak, people who are neurodiverse and they're nonverbal. And I think they are giving us the answer. So if we think that we have a lot of things that separate us, imagine your whole neurological system being wired in such a completely different way that basically your perception of the world is, I mean, for me, it's like unimaginable. It's something completely different. And what the parents and carers of those people are showing us in that film, that is mostly one shot at a time. This is why it has this intensity as well. It's one take. They're showing us it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter how different you are, what language you speak. If you can speak, if you don't speak, it doesn't really matter. Because if you really want to communicate, this is what is always astounds me, what always surprises me, astonishes me, makes me love them and the world, is the fact that if you really want, you can. If you want to be together, if you want to communicate and reach the other person, you can. There is no obstacle. There is no obstacle. And this is even to think trans-species, you know, toward other species. It doesn't matter if we are anatomically different. There is something there. I don't know what it is. I suppose maybe it's the spirit of the work, the spirit of that tries, I suppose, to maybe capture. There was this moment that even me, it mystifies me. I don't 100% understand it. In this last film, this light that breathes, you know, the light that breathes, and then the orchestra, the conductor conducting ghosts that are invisible. I think there is something there that I don't know yet what it is, but there is something there that instinctively I'm trying to capture. That I don't know. I suppose I have to make the next film to discover it. But I think, maybe there's something about the answer that is there in having faith, in believing in others, in I'm sorry, I'm not very articulate. But
It's a very nice message to live in others, to still live in the others. It's yes.
And paying attention. I mean, just the out of all these films, I think for me, watching Doreen and Carl, that very first pair, the mother and her son, and just watching her face, and the attention that is just astounding. How someone is, where is that resource of love that she has and care to extend toward another being to such a level is absolutely incredible.
Yes, incredible.
When he decides to hug her, and you can clearly see the feedback that she gives, because you're filming against him, so we see her, so we can see her, the affection that she receives from him, and that's exactly what you're saying. He doesn't speak, but he manifests that appreciation somehow. And that's amazing.
And it's the moment when the two faces come together. I'm not sure if you noticed that, he's trying to push his eye into her skull, and there is that detail that he's doing it again and again. He really moves his eye, and really sensing her through his eyes, but with his eyes touching her, not looking at her, but his eyes feeling her, touching her, is extraordinary, really. I mean, humans are amazing beings.
Hello, thank you for being here and show us your work. I found it very interesting, the different soundscapes that you created, because it's the main point of the videos, the films. And I want to ask how is the process of creating the sounds or founding the sounds? It's a brainstorming, a collective process. It's very different. I found it the last one was very epic or motivational. That's the purpose, I think. But the first one was very playful. The sounds of the children proposed the sounds, or just you see.
Yeah,
can you tell us more?
All my work starts usually with some kind of educational process. So in that particular case, we worked with children of these people I mentioned, that they lost their jobs and they had to move. So we reconnected with the children, and we organized workshops to reintroduce them to the villages where they were born, but they no longer live there. So we invited a former worker of the power plant who was a geologist, and we did kind of walks through the landscape, which is quite noisy, that geothermal landscape, and through the villages, and through some industrial sites that we could visit, and then after that, we would go to a community center, and I would ask them, what was the sound of the water boiling? What was the sound of this or that? I would ask them questions about what it is they heard, and then I would ask them to try to imitate that thing. And then, of course, I would kind of push them. Oh, but was it like this? Or maybe there was a different version. Maybe someone else thinks something else about that sound. And some of it was very, based on that that experience they had of the landscape. Some of it was more imaginative. So that area is called Valle del Diavolo, so the Devil's Valley. And I would ask them questions about, so what did you think the devil thought about this, and what did the devil say, or what sound did the devil make? And then they would make some other sounds. So basically, in some respects, sounds from beneath, with the coal miners, which is really, I think of it in almost mythological way, that film. Of course, there's a social realist dimension to it, but it also, I was thinking of it like, the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. So Orpheus was this poet, ancient Greek poet and musician, who, with the power of his music, he opened the gates to the underworld, and he went down in search of his beloved, Eurydice. Why am I saying all of this? Because, well, first of all, I think it's an amazing example for all of us involved in the arts, to refer to that myth and think, okay, this is really talking about the power that art has to open the realms to different kinds of experiences, including the invisible, including, that of death. But I thought of the coal miners in a similar way. They worked underground for all their lives, and they had that experience of the soundscape of that place. So when Orpheus returned to the land of the living, unsuccessfully without Eurydice, he dedicated the rest of his life to that experience, to singing and writing poetry of that experience. And I was thinking, well, the coal miners, as contemporary Orpheuses, they come back from the underworld, and they give us, a sense of what that sounded like. And again, the methodology of how that developed was similar to that of the children. So but I did some research into kind of industrial history before, and the machines that were used in coal mining. So what was the sound of the drills? What was the sounds of the explosions? What were the sounds of the conveyor belts? And then they would try to imitate them. And then we created, let's say, a whole palette of sounds. And because they don't read music, how we composed it, I would say, okay, these are the drills, and then you are the water sprays, you are the pneumatic drills or whatever, or the conveyor belts, and then I would basically just conduct like this, drills, whatever, water, like this is how it was created. With the children, it involved kind of imagination and playing as well as observational kind of listening and imitation.
Older people is a little harder to just be creative. I don't know. Maybe what was easier because they lived underground. There are also a whole soundscape that they lived with. I don't know if they sometime they processed the experience of living down there. They live with the sound, but maybe they didn't process the sound like some kind of introspection. It was the first time.
This is the role of the artist. This is the role of the artist to initiate these conversations in a way that is very accessible to people. Or this is how I see my role as the artist, in a way, to trigger this conversation. Of course, I don't say, hello, what was the sound of that experience? You develop a relationship. That project, only the workshops took 9 months. You have to gain the people's trust, hear who they are, where they're coming from, what it is that they wanted to deliver. Because these projects are not my projects, in a way, and I'm not doing art for me. I'm doing art for the world. And I'm not representing myself or what I want to say. I'm representing I mean, it's a tricky situation. I think orchestrating projects in which helping people tell me how to direct them. So it's a really strange kind of process, because I have my visions of how I want to direct people, but may not be the way they want to be represented. So I have to hear them. So for example, in Ain't Got No Fear, with the boys that are rapping, I asked them to choose the locations where they want to be filmed, and they wrote all the lyrics. Of course, I gave them a kind of structure. I told them, okay, they wanted to make, that was their idea was they wanted me to make a documentary about them. I said, what is a documentary? What films do you watch? And they told me that basically what they were sharing on YouTube at that point was all music videos. I said, okay, so the documentary we're making is a music video. And in each part of each different kind of scene, you're telling us about your life. But how are you telling us about your life? So choose significant moments. You know, choose when you were 7, when you were 11, when you were 16, when you're going to be 16, when you're going to be 18, 35, 60. And then they structured, I mean, they were amazing. They wrote an entire song. And these are kids that, I mean, they don't have art at school. Mm-hmm. And we just found each other on the streets, really. There is a lot of parental neglect. They're growing up under very difficult circumstances. They wrote that song in one night. They didn't sleep. They wrote that song in one night. So when you gain people's trust and you somehow understand what it is that they want, creativity can be an incredible tool for people to really explore their potential and really grow. And this is what happened. After we finished that film, one of the boys, Mitch, told me, I want to make another film which is about bullying at school. Can you help me? So someone who had never engaged in art, someone who is coming from a very challenging background, discovered the potential not only to communicate how he feels, but also to explore a particular theme and communicate with others through the medium of, well, in this particular case, filmmaking.
It's a question of unlocking the potential of the communities you work with, I think.
And for them, unlocking my potential, working with children can be quite, amazing what you discover about yourself. I mean, I find working with children the most difficult and the most amazing. Most difficult because I become very attached to them. And it can be the amount of times I cried on my way back from working with the kids, going back home and thinking, oh my God, where am I leaving them? And, do they have anything to eat at home? And it's like you become very attached to, or I become quite attached to those young people who, I mean, they're having a hard life. So I'm discovering things about myself. They're unlocking things, maybe a paternal instinct that I didn't know I had, or other things, they pushed my aesthetic language a lot. Young people, I mean, working with masks or working with, very messy kind of materials or very improvised ways. Usually, I studied architecture, so usually my shots, everything is very composed, as you can see in a lot of the work. But working with young people, my God, this is like, you might as well just forget about all your training and any kind of wish to control anything. And then the question, and I think this is for all of you who are making anything that involves other people, or even materials, does this thing, this film, this drawing, this painting, this exhibition, what does it want to be? I have my ego that is driving it, but actually, maybe it wants to be something else. So very often working with neurodiverse people or with young people, I would have a plan. That's earlier in my career. I would have a plan about what exactly we're going to do on the day we meet. And then we go there, and it's impossible. It's just impossible to do it. I mean, it could be a silly reason, like because, a child has eaten the powder that I introduced to them, which was to do a sound experiment. And but because it was glowing, that is not a film that we watched, it's for another film. He wanted to glow, so he started eating it. So, like, forget about the plans you had for shooting. And then I was initially, earlier in my career, I used to be frustrated. But then I thought, no, it will be what it needs and wants to be. It's not just my work, it's all this collective dynamics. And really, I mean, my role has developed into something else. I think it's about orchestrating situations where people have they feel a kind of expressive freedom. And the other thing is curating relationships, in terms of crews, who is on the team. Because if you have challenging situations, the most important thing, of course, is to have a good technical member of the team, but really the most important thing is to have solidarity, really. People that are calm, they are convivial, they are humane. That goes further. And then they can develop the technical aspect of what it is that they're doing. But the human dimension, and it's a lot more important to realize these kind of projects.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So when will I come? When are you going to invite me to see your films? I'm not joking. We should have a screening with your films. I'd love to see them. Well, remember, invite me. But it can be work in progress. Good.
Mikhail, I would like to, it was amazing to watch all these films of you in one shot. And the importance of the sound, the rhythm, and the games between image and sound all the time. Like in this movie, I think it's in Japan, right? When you have this chorus, and you have details of architecture that becomes, because of the sound, a window or an air thing like this, tube, yeah. And it becomes a sound fountain because of the sound game. And tell us a little bit, to just maybe to finish our session, about shooting, because you are most of the time behind the camera, and editing, because you film landscapes, human landscapes, natural landscapes, very well and very attentive, and to be directing the director of the project and filming at the same time and coordinating a community, it's very, very demanding. How do you manage all these tasks? And about editing, how do you manage all the materials you have in such an operatic and way, and so sharp?
Okay, first of all, I don't do now. I don't do absolutely everything all the time. So, of course, I'm the overall artistic director of the project, and I most of the time film. But when I know that we have a day that I need to do a musical direction of a particular scene, I'm working with an assistant director. I'm working with a director of photography that now, with this one person, we've worked on several projects together, so he understands my visual language. So it's about knowing, because I don't have unlimited budgets, of course, unless you work for Gulbenkian, which which it was really a gift. So the last project was a Gulbenkian commission, and it's really a gift. I hope you all have the chance at some point in your lives to receive the kind of support that our institution gave to me. It was extraordinary. It was almost 3 years, but 2 years, intensive engagement with the young people. And it was the first time I composed with other people, but I had my own section of composing, 15 minutes of symphonic music. I mean, I'm not sure if you know what it entails, but I didn't know. And even though I've been making music since I was 4 years old, this is really my passion. This is a completely different scale of project. So I'm 50 and I'm still learning a lot of things. There's still a lot of things I need to learn. But I'm not doing everything at the same time. So it's about knowing when to invite other people to take some of that responsibility so that I can focus on what I need to. Sound and moving image. I think Sounds from Beneath, it was a kind of discovery for me, because in that film, even now when I was watching it, there is a fight. It was the two sides of myself, a passionate, dedicated sound person, musician, and then someone that works also in the visual arts. And in that film, if you remember, very often would have this explosive sounds, like these sounds extinguishing the image, like they make the image disappear. And there is this kind of conflict in that. Sound and image, they're fighting for dominance. They're fighting. So who is the priority here? And I think that's what was also for me. So editing, you can probably see, like with the first film, Children of Unquiet, when it comes to editing, I'm very organized. So in that film, you saw it's like 3 chapters, the film, but even within each chapter is like elements. So first it's like an exposition. A lot of my editing comes from dance music. I'm not sure if anybody listens to dance music, so no words, it's really about the exposition. So first you have one sound, one rhythm, one beat, then you have the second one, then you have the third one. Then you give the listener a break. They have in mind that. Then you might introduce something else and bring the other 3. So I'm using, it's like a fugue, or it's like dance music. Actually, the compositions of dance tracks and fugues and the preludes are quite similar. You introduce each voice separately. So you have villaggio, fabbrica, geothermia. So you have the key elements. I'm introducing this to the audience, to the viewers. So it's really about creating. Usually, I separate all the material that's the same. I put it together, and I try to create a sequence. Like in the last scene, is that intimacy sequence in which we see the young people caressing each other, lifting each other. And then I don't know what I'm going to do with it, if I'm going to use it or not. So I create these in my editing software, these bins or folders, let's say, with the different sequences. This is the intimacy scene. This is the very last sequence. This is I called it oh my God, what is that science fiction film? The Arrival. Have you ever seen that? Like the Arrival scene. So all the shots that were of like that wall falling, which again is an architectural metaphor. So what happens when people come together? And then I thought, I'm not going to say it, I'm going to show it. They bring walls down, barriers down. So that I separate. So this is what I do, and I do the same with sounds. you know, I separate, so all the sibilant sounds, all the, maybe it's just one word that is, we're exploring. Minimalism has had an influence on me, or the work of Meredith Monk. If you don't know Meredith Monk, I would recommend that you discover some of her work, because she works very well both with moving image and experimental film, as well as with stage performance and music. You know, she's really a genius. And another reference that you might be interested in is Laurie Anderson, who again shifts between pop music, sound art, visual arts, writing, performance. So a lot of these methodologies come from that generation, you know, what I'm using, and focusing on creating very clear kind of moments, exploring just that one material, one light, you know, one movement, like the movement of the flags. I don't need to show anything else. You know, how can I explore that just by focusing on that, just the movement of the flags, that choreography? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mais alguma questão, alguma partilha? Então, obrigado pela vossa, Hugo. Não queres partilhar?
Muito obrigado, muito obrigado. Bom descanso.
Obrigado. E antes de darmos uma salva de palmas ao Mikhail Karikis, queria só deixar-vos o convite para a próxima terça-feira, às 3 da tarde, noutro horário, quem puder. Passem a palavra, venham. Vamos receber André Cepeda, um importante fotógrafo contemporâneo português, que estará connosco para uma conferência, mais uma conferência deste ciclo, está bem? Sintam-se convidados e passem a palavra, a entrada é sempre livre. E são todas e todos bem-vindos. E agora sim, uma salva de palmas ao Mikhail Karikis.
Obrigado.
Obrigado.
Boa noite. André.